Good morning or afternoon or whenever you're watching. This is Professor Jesse. I hope your summer has been going well and you've been enjoying this lovely rainy and steamy weather. For some, this is time to curl up and read a book in the air conditioning or go to the beach and lose themselves in a novel that might not have that literary merit that one would be bragging about having read a book of such caliber. But I just want to talk about the idea of stories right now. There was an Irish philosopher, Richard Kearney, who said that stories shape our lives. Even if we don't realize it, our lives are shaped by that which we read, we watch, the stories we tell, we hear from other people. And I kind of want to explore how this works and how you engage with stories. So, Kearney said in this kind of short but dense and daunting little book called On Stories that there's five main elements to a story. I'll upload these to Blackboard later so you can see them, but I want you to think about how you connect with the stories that you interact with. So these five elements. The first element is plot, which is the structure of the story, as in the beginning, middle, and the end. The plot is taking you through kind of the temporal events and telling you what is happening. This is the basic that you could reduce kind of the action of the story down to. So if we took like a movie like Star Wars, we could say that it's I don't know, a son fighting against his dad. Spoiler. Or we could say it's a giant galactic space opera where, oh, that's getting more into genre, but it's getting into the idea of what is happening, what are the beats of the story that are happening. Someone does this, finds out that are young adult novels. Someone thinks that they're ordinary, finds that they have special powers, finds that they're the only one who can take out the bad guy, whoever that is, and then comes to terms with their powers. Something bad happens to their power, and they believe in themselves or fall in love with someone else, or someone encourages them, and then they are able to vanquish the power that they're born to be, fated to be against. That's the plot. The recreation is the second element, which is the recounting of events, but not in exactly plot. You get recreation more in stories that you tell about yourself, that others tell about themselves, or foundational stories like religious myths, where it's the recounting of events, but in a different way than the plot. So the recreation is highlighting and magnifying events while exaggerating some elements while downplaying other elements. So in the recreation, you have what happened, but not really. Um, in literature, TV, and movies, we have the concept of the unreliable narrator, which is they're telling you kind of what happened, but you can't really trust them because they're blowing things out of proportion. And usually in a story, when things are blown out of proportion, they're trying to highlight some aspect of the event. Um, so if you're reading a newspaper article and they say that the whole town was gathered, that's recreation, right? It is a recounting of the events. A whole bunch of people showed up, but it's not the whole town. But they're trying to, by using the word town there, they are saying that it was this unifying event for this community. The exaggeration gives more meaning than just and 500 people showed up, where the fact is more correct, but the whole town showing up paints a more vivid and more meaningful picture for the reader. So we might tell stories about ourselves. Um, you know, Everyone in school looked at us weird that day that we walked down the hallway with toilet paper on our shoe or whatever. right? It's probably only a couple of people that looked at you, but to convey the feeling, the mood, the understanding of how transformative that was, or how it why that story sticks with you, you exaggerate a little bit because it feels like the whole school had its eyes on you. Classic example from a sitcom of kind of the exaggerating and magnifying events would be the unreliable narrator in How I Met Your Mother, where everything is wonderful and beautiful and nice, big old apartment, everyone's attractive. You have this magnifying their life to show that they felt like this was the time of their life, that this was the best time of their life, even though that's probably not how their apartments looked, how their significant others, or insignificant in some cases, um, looked or acted. It paints that picture and shows you how they remember it. So recreation is telling a story but exaggerating to add that meaning. The third element of a story is release or catharsis, is the big word. You might hear someone say that watching this or reading this was cathartic. It, what that means is it's allowed you to process emotion in such a way. So the release or the catharsis is the ability for the story to make you feel empathy with a character. It's that connection that you have with the person in the story. So in something like Les Miserables, right, either the book by Victor Hugo or the musical or the movie, whichever you prefer or are maybe um, familiar with, you have this telling of the story of Jean Valjean, who's this kind of lowly, destitute person who's kind of criminal, but trying to make his way in the world and not be criminal. And the way Hugo paints the picture is so that you feel for that person. Um, on a different side of this, you have with like Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. Um, Spoiler again. I cheered when the character of Anna Karenina died. It made me happy. I was very happy that she. I felt like this bird. She was such a terrible person. Her character was so rotten to the core, and I despised everything about her that I literally took a second after reading where she gets run over by a carriage and cheered a little bit because I could release all of that frustration with people who are kind of manipulative and treat people poorly. Um, you might have this when the bad guy in a movie or kind of thriller action book gets their comeuppance, is caught in the end, right? Where you feel this, oh, thank goodness there's right in the world. There's a restorative process there. Or there might be a book that you're reading where you kind of work through, or a TV show that helps you work through some kind of grief or mourning or feeling of sadness, depression, whatever, and you watch it to see how they progress through their struggles, their trials, and you connect with them. And in connecting with them, you can process your feelings. So, release or catharsis is that connection with the character, with who the person, either on screen, on the page, is, and what the story is telling you about them. Because there's some characters that we really like, and there's some characters that we root for their demise. And there's a lot of stories that we watch that we feel better after engaging with the story. We don't like a lot of movies or books to end where the quote unquote bad person wins, right? Where someone doesn't get what they deserved. Um, There's a few movies in the past decade or two where this happens, where you're like, no, they shouldn't have gone free, right? You feel that, and you don't have that release after engaging with that movie. You feel maybe worse after engaging with that. The fourth element of story is the element of wisdom, which is what the story is trying to teach you. What the story is trying to teach you might be something about the beauty of growing old. Um, could be something about kind of the um, joy of friendship. So, or the the idea that you need to give up kind of your loneliness or your frustration. Wait, so you have a movie like Up, which kind of the wisdom of that is this idea of don't be that curmudgeon, connect with people. Another similar novel to that kind of theme is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman, where it's about this old man who feels abandoned and hates everyone and keeps trying to kill himself, but his new neighbors and their family keep intervening coincidentally. And it's about bringing them into his world and him seeing that connection is a wonderful thing to have in this world. That's kind of the wisdom. What lesson is it trying to teach you? How does this make you kind of reevaluate your world? And similarly to this is the fifth element, which is how the story shapes your view of right and wrong. Um, I tend to think that movies don't really do this to me, or books don't really do this to me, but I can see how the various kind of romantic comedies that I consumed in high school and college kind of shaped my view of love and what a true loving relationship looked like, and the morality of what you should do inside of a relationship um, was shaped by that. You also get, I mean, so many movies have strong motifs of right and wrong, and the movie dictates to you, or the book dictates to you, who the good guy is or who the bad guy is. There's not a lot of room for that gray space where you get to decide whether they are a good person or not. Um, by dictating who the good person and who the bad person is in the story, the author of the story is telling you, all right, so the good person has these characteristics, these morals, these ethics. This is how they embody the world and move through it. These are the guiding principles they use for their um, decision making. Same with the bad person, and you start to gravitate towards what the good person in a lot of these movies is thinking and how they're thinking through things. I remember when kind of the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man came out in theaters. A lot of people were walking around dropping the line, with great power becomes great responsibility, and kind of that was their moral mantra for a while. That it is the power of, or it's the responsibility of people who have a means of changing the world to change the world and to put their power to good and not use it for selfish gains. So that's kind of this understanding of story. And I want to know, does story do you feel yourself shaped by story in these ways? Do you feel like you get that release, you get that wisdom, you get that ethic, or do you feel like you focus on kind of the plot, how things happened? Um, So I'm going to have you write a 2-page paper on this. It's a reflection paper, no research needed. Um, just your thoughts. How do you feel like you've been shaped by stories? I'll see you next time.